Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Sorry, there was a network issue. So I was telling you that this is a show that I have started um, some weeks ago, just to make sure that people learn from the great people who I invited in these shows. So today you will be learning a different thing in a different perspective, and you will be learning how to make a lemonade. Yes, you may have heard about this thing that if life gives you lemon, make a lemonade. So we will be learning how to make a lemonade. Without any further delay, I'll invite Mr. Michael Ballard. Uh, Let me invite him.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. How's it going, Michael?
It's going well. We're living during interesting times with COVID, but I'm counting my blessings because I'm safe, I'm fed, and I'm housed. And that's a lot more than many during these difficult times. So 3 points of gratitude for me that are real big.
So that relates to my first question, that how to make a lemonade if life gives you lemon.
Aha. One of the biggest skills that we can have to be more resilient, to be safer, have a better experience every day, even in the moment, and longer term, is it's called framing and reframing. How do you see your life? What's your POV, your point of view? So when COVID struck and my government said here to stay safe, we have to stay home. So that's a little bit annoying, but I work from home, so it's not a big deal. It is annoying. I can't invite my friends out for coffee or go for tea to their house, but I'm safe, I'm fed, and I'm housed. And so many in this world don't have those luxuries. So framing and reframing, lemons into lemonade, partly is gratitude. What's going on, and how can you see it from another POV, another point of view? So I remember a long time ago when I got a major illness diagnosis of cancer, the doctor said, so it's serious, Michael, very serious. How do you feel? I said, scared out of my wits, but I've made it to 26. I have loving parents. I have a woman that loves me. I have a good job. I'm on my way to owning a house. Many other good things in my life have been going on. So this is scary, and the rest is pretty darned amazing. So I have to deal with the scary. I'd like to live. I need treatment. So POV, turning lemons into lemonade, you're acknowledging reality. You're not ignoring reality. The day I got my cancer diagnosis, I drove to the lawyer's office and said, I need a new will to make sure everything's up to date. On the off chance I die, my wife deserves to have an up-to-date plan. And so I knew it was scary, so I went in to fight the fight. So lemons into lemonade. Did I have cancer, or did cancer have me? If you allow cancer to have you, that means you feel helpless and hopeless. And for a few minutes every day, absolutely, even a couple hours. But for the other 22 or 23 hours, it's like, oh yeah? So I had cancer. Cancer didn't have me. So lemons into lemonade. It doesn't always change the outcome. It always changes the quality of the experience. You had a technology hiccup when we got started. We could get upset, but what a waste of energy. As I sent you in the side note before we reopened the browser and started again, it's like, I'm here. It's all good. We'll just take a deep breath. We're only 2 minutes in difference of starting and not starting. You know, it's going with the flow is another way to put it. So that's lemons in the lemonade.
That's amazing, and I congratulate you because you have recovered from a great cancer. It's something that is very, it's your resilience. And one thing that I have learned from the mind sciences and all those things that is related to the law of attraction and NLP, that energy is something that we create around ourselves. energy is present everywhere, but we create good energy for ourselves and for our loved ones. So how do you create energy for yourself that helps you recover from the cancer and the diseases, all those the things that you have gone through?
So mindset, beliefs, and values. So to go back to my health issue, I knew that my family doctor had found me the best surgeon in all of my province or state. He had left the continent of North America to go to Europe, where they did surgery that was 30 years more advanced than anywhere else in the world. So he left North America to go somewhere else to learn more. So that told me that I was in the hands of not only just a talented surgeon, but a surgeon that was willing to admit that his university and all the ones around them didn't know as much about my type of cancer surgery as they did across the ocean. So he had an open mind to do better, to gather added wisdom. So that made me feel assured. Now, I was lucky to live in a place where there was only one out of many surgeons, but he had done that. So that was reassuring and comforting. And so with mindset of I deserve the best doctor we can find, we found the best surgeon for me. And Dr. Connick is long retired now, coming in up 78, 79 years old real soon. But back then when I was 26, 27 and he was 35-ish, he was quite a gentleman, and he was the best surgeon for the job. So to turn lemons into lemonade, you have to own the issue. And if you own the issue, the words of resiliency or the beliefs and values of resiliency, there's some phrases we can use. And your listeners might want to write this down or come back and write it down. But 4 phrases to help us be more resilient for a better quality experience, often increasing the quality of the outcome, is I am. So when I was going through my cancer issues, I am doing my best. Got the best doctor we could find in the best hospital. It was a teaching hospital. So you have to give up some modesty and some privacy because doctors have to learn somewhere. So not only was my doctor at bedside, but there was 1 to 4, sometimes 7 other doctors in training there, and sometimes nurses in training, asking questions. And with permission, they would take your pulse, feel your glands, do a workup. And so you're not concerned about all this lack of privacy. I said, people have to learn somewhere, and to be respectful and silly, I'm getting an extra opinion for free. So I chose to be accepting of students. And yes, sometimes you're really tired and worn out from the treatments and the surgery, but there's 7 or 9 doctors in training at the end of your bed with your surgeon who's well-trained and lots of experience. And it was good to have these people asking me questions because they got me to reflect on, aren't I lucky to be in a hospital with all this expertise? Because these 9 are learning what he's teaching. And he had the courage to leave country, leave the continent, and go get the best in the world training. And I get to receive that. So being resilient is I am open to learning, accepting, respecting. I am also putting up boundaries. Some things, no. I am, I have, I can do this to the best of my abilities. It won't always be easy. Getting out of bed the day after surgery, I had a 16-inch incision, so 19 to 20 centimeters long, all the way down. I teased the doctor if they'd gone any deeper, would they have been able to poke out the other side by my backbone? He said, yeah, almost. And so I can get out of bed, take 3 steps and sit in the hospital chair. Oh, boy, did that hurt, even though I had pain meds. But I was going to recover. So I am, I have, I can, and that was the doing. In my head, I can. Then I had to get my feet over the edge of the bed with 2 people to help me. And then I did the doing part. Very uncomfortable, very painful. And sat there. Deep breath. They stayed for a minute. Are you okay? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. How's your blood pressure? I said, I don't feel like I'm going to faint. Okay. So in my mind, after I'd been there for a little while, I practiced in my head. I do get up. I can walk back to bed with help. And for 2 days, I practiced that. The third or fourth day was practicing. I do walk without help. I can and I will walk without help. And I did. So being resilient means I am, I have, I can, I do. So it's being what I call a realistic optimist. It doesn't mean you have all the answers, but it means you're open to do better, think better, and be very flexible or plastic or malleable in your thinking. Doesn't mean you're being immoral, but you're just looking for different ways. I could have lied in bed and said, oh, I need more pain meds. I can't possibly make it to the hospital chair. But that would have hurt me. Wouldn't hurt anybody else. Means I've been slower to get mobile, slower to get back to be active. Because I went from 165, 170 pounds to 137 pounds. I was rather skinny after all the surgery and treatments. So turning lemons into lemonade, it's a point of view and it's a beliefs and value system. It's also the language we use, because there's some people get stuck in helplessness and hopelessness. They're in the valley of despair, as I put it. So we have to be cautious that we don't get stuck in the valley of despair. Remember that I have cancer or cancer has me. In the valley of despair, cancer owns us, or the issue owns us. And so it's important that we look and say, what are my beliefs and values in my language? Do I have the issue? Does the issue have me? At 3:30 in the morning when I couldn't sleep some nights, cancer owned me for 10 or 20 minutes. But then I do and I can. I do and I can. And there's that song, wake up, get out of bed. And so I would play theme music and get up out of bed and struggle to the chair and sit down in the chair and then move my feet. Practicing here, practicing walking. I was still too weak to walk. But by day 6 and 7, with my IV pole, I was walking to the door and back several times a day. So that's another part of the process. Point of view, beliefs and values, language, which discusses our values and beliefs and helps propel us forward in more resiliency.
So you have answered.
Oh, we lost audio.
Let me check. Is it okay now?
Yes. I can hear you.
So you have answered so many questions regarding how to deal with stress and how to be reactive and how to behave in a certain way and how to act as if before the things happen. But the thing is, sometimes you get stressed, you get negativity from other people. I mean, the people around you, they tend to push you towards the negative things, towards the stress, and they let you believe that you are doing wrong and you are in a miserable situation, and they create a fake reality around yourself. So how to deal with that?
I call it putting up my emotional shield. It's slightly porous so that I can hear them, but then I say, those are their beliefs, those are not my beliefs. So I had a relative who since passed at a very old age of 93. I loved them, but I did not like their language. They were very negative on virtually everything. So I loved them. I didn't like their beliefs, and they would say nasty things. And in my head, I would go, that's unfortunate. They're in so much pain. They wish to be nasty or negative to others. And I would just then say, that's theirs. That's not me. That will never be me. I refuse to accept that belief system in here, of course. So you really had to pay attention when you're around her, because I loved her. She showed me love through clothing and food over the years as a senior relative. But when this opened up, it was a tsunami of pain and discomfort. And that's unfortunate, but that's who she was. So there was no change in her. Didn't matter what you said. You were wrong and she was right. She had the proof. So I visited, and I sometimes sent notes instead of phoning, because the note would be something physically tangible. She knew I thought of her and loved her, but I didn't have to listen to the nastiness. So that was one way to stay connected, engaged, be respectful, but not have to listen to because unfortunately the last few years of her life, only her direct relative visited her. Even her siblings didn't visit her, because she just was, if she was a news station, her tagline would have been all negative, all nasty, all the time. So I put up what I call my invisible Lexon shield, so that I could acknowledge I hurt her. I stayed respectful, but I just said, no, that's not me. It's not who I'm around. It's not what I accept. And that's just her being her. Takes time, takes energy. And I wrote the letters so that I visited a little less, but she had something tangible. So I am told she kept all the letters because they were signs of love. I just don't need to hear you be nasty and vile. And she was nasty and vile in every category when she talked. But she'd feed you like visiting royalty. When I was a kid, she gave me gifts that for live in Canada with our winter climates, the hats, the gloves, the pants, the socks. Oh, she took such, once a year, I got just a great wardrobe from her. So she knew great love with physical. She couldn't express it emotionally or intellectually. It was all negative. Anyways, that's what I did. I put up this invisible shield, respect them, accept them, but know that it's not me. Anything they say is going to bounce off me. Somebody said, so you put on a Teflon shirt? I said, yes. My heart is impenetrable for that hate and anger.
So that sums up that we all are humans and we can feel the same thing. I mean, I feel that I'm in Pakistan or I'm living in a subcontinent area, so I feel more stressed. But no, we all are humans. We all feel the same thing. I mean, whether we are living on other country or anywhere else.
Yes.
So the thing that I want to learn or I want to inquire about, that is the energy. I mean, you said that she spoke and she told you something, or she said negative things, so you can so you understood that she is negative. But what if a person is around you and he or she is not speaking? How can we assess that he is a negative person, or can we assess the energy field around him or her? How can we deal with that?
We all have our filters and our belief systems, and some of us bring in information through what we see, what we hear, what we feel, all our senses, what we smell, what we taste. And so everybody receives differently. So my aunt could transmit physically with food and things love in great capacity. At one point, I had a door-to-door business as a preteen, somewhere between 9 and 13. I had 50-odd customers with newspapers and magazines, and I was a busy going kid. And our climate here can be rather cold. So 20 degrees below Celsius with 30, 100-kilometer-an-hour winds. My aunt knit me a toque, a winter that came down to here, and I'd fold it up, and it would be like 4 layers thick. And I bring it down to here. My head was toasty warm. She knew how to take good care of her nieces and nephews physically with things. She didn't know how to manage her emotions, and so everything was stated in the negative, virtually 100%. If it was the nicest day of the year for weather, sunshine, perfect temperature for her, with a little tiny breeze, perfect for her, she'd still tell you why it was bad. She just couldn't have gratitude. And so I had to say, that is her. This is not me. I love her for what she shares with food. Oh my gosh, I had meals at that woman's house that were just amazing. But the words, my parents on the way home, Wasn't she so wonderful when she did A, B, and C, and that food she cooked all on her own? And then that dessert she made from scratch, amazing. And she had a drink for each of us. She knew you like tomato juice. You got tomato juice. Your cousins like orange juice. Your other cousin liked pineapple juice. She remembered everything. Amazing love and respect. But be careful about what she said to you. Guard your heart, because she doesn't have the gift of kindness and respect, and she just gave away nastiness all the time. It was hard to believe she was connected to my other relatives. It was like she was another person and it came from another planet, another family. So again, you have to guard your heart, guard your head, and read them. She physically was safe. She was always respectful, smiled, nodded, acknowledged. Food, clothing as a teenage, or right up till I was 16. She just couldn't do this with respect. Was just not developed. It was like that part of her brain didn't work right, except in the negative and the nasty. So my mother at an early age with my father, aren't we grateful that she has amazing gifts of sharing? She didn't have to buy me winter clothes and summer clothes. My parents did a pretty darn good job at that, but she always wanted to make sure I had a little bit extra. She didn't have to feed us that well. She could have fed us, but she didn't have to feed us really well, but she did. So my parents had gratitude, be cautious. It was like 2 lists when I went to visit Auntie. So in our own lives, whether it's our family members, our neighbors, our coworkers, the students we go to school with or teach, everybody's got how they project and how they absorb and all the different systems we all have. And so it's the gratitude for what they do have and caution and put up the filters for what they don't have and how they share inappropriately. So we got to be active. And if we're really tired, we have to be careful that they don't get past the shield and get to us. I remember we came home from an event where there was lots of people that knew my parents, but they weren't relatives. And on the way home, my mother said, "What did that woman say to you? I saw her say something to you and you flinched." And I thought, wow, as an adult, it's like my mother was keeping an eye on me. I was only 6 or 7. She said I had a big nose. And my mother went, "You know, I heard she can't say nice things." Sound like somebody else we've talked about? Yes, Mom. Good. It's not true. So throw that away. Do not listen. It's fake. She just doesn't know how to be nice. So anyways, as a child, having parents that ran interference to make sure that others didn't get through this was a pretty powerful time. And as adults or teens, as we develop this, we have to constantly pay attention to who says what. There's politicians in the world that elevate us and lift us up, whether they're our country or another country. And there's politicians that try to have power over all of us through nastiness and negativity and fear. So we have to develop our filters to keep our heart and our head, our thinking and feeling safe. And that's part of being resilient, using our judgment. What's authentic and what's just fake.
Yes, beautifully. So the thing is that you have said a lot of time in your conversation about gratitude. So how do you use gratitude to, enhance your powers or enhance your energy, or to keep yourself out from the negativity? How do you do that?
Gratitude. I'm going to use school as an example. I had the blessings of a math teacher as a neighbor when I was in high school. So grade 9 and up. In Canada, we have junior kindergarten, senior kindergarten, and grade 1. Grade 1 starts when you're 6. So when you're 13, 14, you get to be grade 9. Well, I didn't do well in grade 9 math. And I did worse in grade 10 math. So my neighbor, Mr. Campbell, ran into me one day when I was out delivering newspapers. "Michael, I was talking to your mom and dad, asked how you were, and I understand you're disappointed in math." Now, my math teacher I was disappointed in, not so much disappointed in him. I just knew there was something wrong. Fast forward 20 years, he'd had a medical condition and died just after the end of my school year. He was confused in class a lot and taught a lesson, then say I did it wrong the next day and do it again and get it wrong again. So my marks slipped to 52%. I was not happy. I never cared about getting 99, but I wanted to get better than 52. Mr. Campbell, Michael, you've been a babysitter for my two daughters when they were young. You at the hardware store were very good at square feet and square meters for paint coverage and how many nails for subflooring when I'm renovating a house. And when you were my paper boy, you were really good to the penny with percentages. He said, your business math skills are way above average for your age. I'd like you to take my math class next year. I took his class. My mark was almost 80. If I hadn't worked so much outside of the house with my part-time jobs, I probably could have got closer to 90. Because if you do all the homework and all the practice lessons, you get better marks. Anyways, so with school, when you get a bad grade, what went wrong? What didn't go right? Was it studying? Was it the teacher? Was the student? Was it nutrition? It's not about blame, just figuring it out. So my grade 10 math teacher who died, I have no blame for him in my 52%. He was struggling and doing his best. I was the student going, he's teaching it different than yesterday, and it still makes no sense. Well, in hindsight, he probably had diabetes or something that affected his clarity of thinking because he was a nice man. And it was only that year that people complained about him. And so I think it was his health issue. So to have a teacher do their best and have me not fail, but not do well, and then have a teacher take me under their wing and I excelled, I have a lot of gratitude for both of them. Yes, I almost failed with one. Doesn't matter. He was struggling to do his best, and I have gratitude that even in his last months, he was doing his best. And it still hurts that he didn't make it because he cared, and when we didn't do well, he got frustrated, not at us, just frustrated. And when Mr. Campbell was teaching, he said the most remarkable things more than once. Michael, this last test, you got a 93. Michael and I really connected in that lesson. Thanks, Michael. Next lesson, somebody else got a 51. Who got a mark above 80? I'd like everybody that got a mark above 80 to give me an idea how to teach this another way. I have 2 examples. I gave you the 2 examples, and we had 4 of you fail and 3 of you get a mark under 65. I can only be the best teacher when I have the best examples, and I know my students are as smart as me with less experience. And he would brainstorm with the whole class to help the 5 kids that got low marks. Mr. Campbell was one of the best teachers I've ever had, ever will have. Mr. John Campbell, now retired. So that takes courage for a math teacher or any parent to say, I don't have all the answers. Who can help me help these 5 do better? And more than once, he did that when I got a mark that was too low. Because he'd say, what mark do you want? And I always said, I think 75 is enough. Now that I'm much older, 85 or 90 would have been something better to aim for. But I was busy outside of school. I'm an entrepreneur. I had a newspaper route, snow shoveling business, lawn cutting business. I had things to do. School was just something you were supposed to get a mark in. So to be resilient and have gratitude, the teacher where I almost failed with 52, I have gratitude that he did his best. I had another teacher where 69% or 67% of all the students in the year failed. I feel sad for them, but I also have gratitude that I was in that class because they taught me how not to be a teacher. They came from another country to teach another language and had the audacity to say that only the language, the way they taught it, was any good. The people in the country of Canada that taught it, spoke it already, had it wrong. You don't come to another country and make fun of the citizens and how they speak their language. But anyways, I have gratitude I was in her class for the year because I learned how not to be a teacher. So you can find gratitude everywhere you go. I have a bone joint issue. And at one point, it hurt so much I could barely walk for a few days. So I got to a medical appointment with my family doctor. I told him what the issue was, and he worked on the foot that's fine and looked and felt the joints. And any pain? None. Doesn't appear to be no arthritis in this foot. Goes to the toes, works, gets to the joint. He touches it. What's that like? I said, it's like you stabbed me with a knitting needle. Oh, he said, well, I don't feel any. He said, oh, that joint's disconnected. So he got a physical touch, sent me off for x-rays and other things. And I went to the foot expert, and he unwisely said, there's nothing you can do. You're old. At that point, I was 62. I said, old to me is 101. I expect to still run, jog, run stairs, bicycle, maybe rollerblade, maybe skate. So that's the wrong answer. So I got another opinion, and I have an orthotic that pushes the joint into place, and I have gratitude for that expert who had the courage to get 2 doctorates, chiropractor and Western medicine. And then he has somebody with an honors degree in kinesiology, all about movement. And they went, yeah, this will do it. And now, for 3 years with this orthotic, I'm almost as good as new. I know the toe joint is no longer high function, but no pain, not even discomfort. It just says now and again, hi. So I have gratitude for the experts that figured it out, what the problem was, and experts that resolved it. And gratitude that I had a choice of going to another foot doctor and ignoring the one that said you're just old. So you can find gratitude in anything if you look for it.
That's very good. So I think someone who has been for so many things, who has gone through different problems, and he has used gratitude, and that's one of the reasons that you are in this state and you are giving to the humanity. And I've seen your post on resilience on your the Facebook group, and they are amazing. I mean, you are helping people and you are doing something that is great. So my next question is that because of the pandemic, things have been changed, and now students have to struggle more. Teachers have to struggle more. Those who are not familiar with the technology and those who cannot use the technology very well, and they have to switch towards the technology to teach others. So, how can we be more productive in these times, and how to learn more skills in less time?
Productive and more skills and more time. Depending on your city, your country, I'm blessed to live in Toronto. We have 100+ libraries. So I always say to people that live in the city, where's your library card? So if you have access to a private library, a school library, a public library, what's one book a week, one book a month you can read to learn? I've got a book here from the famous Henry Nouwen. And so I like to read one book a year on death and dying, because we all get born, we're all going to die. But I can't speak for your culture, but in my culture, we don't like to talk about death and dying. And so there's a lot of fear and a lot of pain. And yet it's a transition we all go through. Somewhere between being born and dying, we should think on it. And having faced death with my cancer 3 times, it concerns me, but it doesn't scare me. So for me, reading one book a year and reflecting on death and dying and trying to live a life of meaning and purpose is really important to me. So what are the books you read? And what's the diet you give your brain and your feelings by what you read? So I like to read biographies and autobiographies of people of accomplishment. And sometimes their accomplishment, we've never heard of it. There's a famous American actress that in the 1930s, she invented things that helped the fax machine happen. And yet everybody knows her as a beauty. Well, it turns out that beauty was smarter than most men and women back in the 1930s with engineering degrees. I mean, who knew that a woman in the 1930s virtually invented the complete fax machine? I didn't. But when I read it, it was like, wow, she almost made no money from that. She made her money from being fabulous. Okay, that's Western culture in the 1930s. But she was so smart, it's remarkable. It's reading about the ladies that did the software programming to put the man on the moon in the 1960s, and yet they were barely recognized up until the book and the movie came out in the last 10 years. I just love reading that because they had obstacles and they had fierce brain power, and yet based on race and gender, they couldn't ever be as smart as boys and men. Well, they were the smartest ones in the room often. So I like to read biographies and autobiographies that get me to reflect on don't judge people by what you see and what you think they might be. Their potential is often very big, and we shouldn't judge that. So I went to school with a genius. And for those of you who have ever watched the TV show Big Bang Theory about the pretend character Sheldon Cooper, who's a genius with bad social skills, I went to school with somebody who had better than Sheldon's social skills, but by grade 11 was finishing his master's degree in mathematics. So at 15, he was almost finished his master's degree and was doing some freelance computer programming for NASA and a couple of other places. And so if you'd have looked at him, you'd have thought, he needs a haircut. He needs to exercise more, if you had judgment. He eats funny. He had incredible discipline. He ate well-balanced meals, but he ate just what he needed. I've always had 3 to 7 pounds too much of Michael. So I'm not obese, but I like my cookies. As an adult, I don't eat them every week anymore, but as a teenager, what's a couple of cookies every day? Anyways, so I've learned not to judge, or I attempt to never judge, and it's really fascinating on how that helps because it keeps your mind open. So to learn more in the pandemic, what are you reading? If you can't get books signed out, what can you see online? There's a whole lot of series online that are free. For those of us that use Macintosh computers, I found I'm diabetic now, currently. I have the symptoms of. We'll see what happens next year with diet change and more exercise. There's a university in California has 27 major programs by PhDs and dietitians, nutritionists, and doctors about how to manage your diabetes, how to reduce your symptoms, how to eliminate it. It's very fascinating. It's all free. So what are you doing to educate your mind? What are you doing to increase your emotional intelligence? You talk productivity. The financial company American Express did quite a bit of research in the 1990s to help their merchants have better customer service ratings, to have better customer service, to have better experiences for customers. And they found out that people who increase their emotional intelligence, practice their emotional intelligence, communication skills, engagement, physicality around others, were up to 113%, I believe, more effective and more efficient. And increased profits for the merchant, increased satisfaction for the merchant, and customers were happier, more repeat business. That's a big number. And so that's something that we could never stop learning. And I can't speak for you, but for me, people who make me happy when I go to buy things, when I go to buy haircuts at the local mall when it's open and not locked down due to COVID, they treat me for my $40 as if I was visiting royalty. I've teased them a couple times. Who's the famous person just behind me? Because they get the warm voice. Hi, Michael, it's good to see you. And I'm like, wow, I'm spending $40. You think I was spending $4,000? And so to get through this pandemic, what are you doing to increase your education? What are you to increase your happiness by what you learn? Sometimes when we learn things, it's annoying because we have to change our belief systems because the experts are saying you're partially right, but you missed the point. So that's why I like to read books on death and dying to make me think about that process. And sometimes it happens quickly, and some of us that have had illness, it happens over a course of days, weeks, months, or years. And so how prepared am I? So I like to read a lot. And some of it I like to read is just good nonsense, murder mysteries. And some of it's silliness murder mysteries. There's a lady in the US that just passed that wrote a series of alphabet murder mysteries. There was A was for alibi, B was for burglar, C was for crime scene. Those aren't serious murder mystery books. They're meant to make you laugh. They're meant to make you go, huh? And so the main character is Kelsey. She drives a Volkswagen. And I feel like I know her because I read the whole series. The author died before she got to Z, but somewhere in around W I got to. And I feel like I know the character. I always thought it would be fun to meet the author and go for lunch. So I read that because I deserve to have a what I call a holiday. But it's written with respect, and it's written to make you think about personalities and behavior. And she makes me think about, oh, you're right. Even my best friends have things where they do that annoy me. And I just put it down to that's what friendship is. You forgive them and forget the little stuff because it doesn't matter. And so she was very good at making me think. She was very good at making me think about how to age because one of her chief characters was her landlord who was in his late 80s. And he was still a hip happening guy looking for a nice lady to date who could keep up. Because, you know, those girls, when they get to be 80, they slow down on me. They don't want to do anything. He said, I got to date younger ones in their 70s. So it was fun and real. So reading biographies and autobiographies, reading a little bit of fun, travel brochures and books. Right now, I've got a couple of people I follow that are photographers that have done commercials for different products all over Europe. So I got here 3 days early. I went to where we were going to shoot the commercial. Our permits are from this time to this time, but I got there a couple hours early, 2 days before, to look at sunrise, sunset, shadows. And it's just the technical things. And then he shares some pictures. And it's like, well, as an amateur photographer, this guy's really interesting. So no, I'm not taking lessons formally, but it's making me think that if I'm going to have a phone with a camera on it, why not learn one thing every couple of weeks on how to do it better? Because I have a couple of the pictures I've taken in 25 years that people have blown up and put on their living room walls. As one lady said when I took a picture of her in her late 30s, you made me look 21. My husband said it's his favorite picture of me because it reminds me of the day he met me. Thank you, Michael. And that's when I learned to use fill flash. So the flash is less bright outdoors, but it makes some of the wrinkles disappear because they're well lit and there's no shadows. So anyways, so to learn during the pandemic, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you searching for? Because there's BBC, National Geographic. There's lots of places that are free. There's art galleries giving free virtual tours. Normally, you'd spend $10, $20, $50 to see some of these places. But with government funding, they've opened them up and allowed us to do virtual. So for those that have internet, it's awesome. For those that don't have internet, do they have a neighbor that will lend them a couple of books? Just get them back in good shape. Don't eat pizza when you read a book, unless you own it. So those are some thoughts on growing this and this.
That's amazing, and I am into that, and I can feel that you are talking from your heart and giving the best. And the thing is that I have experienced over the time that I didn't get into this thing, the meditation, the visualization thing. I have been doing since I was a child. Because, and I don't know, and at that time I didn't know that I was doing that thing in a specific way. But when I grew up, I learned that this is something very amazing. So so when did you learn about meditation or visualization, or how do you think about that? Some think that this is a meditation as a ritual, or some take it as as a fun activity, visualization thing. So how do you differentiate this thing?
Good question. Good question. I got introduced to mindfulness at a young age. I was a good kid, but at 4, I was rambunctious. I was full of energy. Go, go, go. My poor mother, she needed roller skates to keep up. So my dad would come home from work, and sometimes once a week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes once a month, depending on the weather, he would take me out for a walk. And he tried to give me one lesson every walk. So we lived near, as the city of Toronto grew and the communities around Toronto grew, the farm near my parents' place went out of productivity. It was bad soil, 100 years 200 years ago, it was an okay farm, but it was glacial clay. The soil, if you put a spade into it, it was like cement, just about ready to harden. So it wasn't really productive. So it went out of productivity. Dad would take me through walks, and there was an old orchard that was 50 to 100 years old. And there was a cluster of pine trees that had grown up through because it wasn't open as a farm anymore in the field. And I remember Dad taking me to the one pine tree one day on the one edge. And he said, son, this tree, it's got a bit of a lean to it. Do you think the tree at this age is leaning into the wind or away from the wind? Can trees lean? And he's giving me clues. Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yes, it does. But do you think when the wind blows, it leans away from the wind or it leans into the wind? Well, I'm 4 years old or 5 years old. I'm thinking, oh, that's a big question. So my dad started at an early age to get me just with one question and helping me out with some of the answers. And so by the end of the walk, he'd help me understand that trees lean away from the wind. Next time, same tree. Now, Michael, there's 30 or 40 of these trees, and this one's almost on the edge, but there's lots of grass around it too. But you notice there's a little tiny bit of moss down here. Moss likes cool, damp, and dark. So what side of the tree gets most sunshine? Oh, well, that would be the side without moss on it because that's got more light and less damp and it's not dark. So Dad was constantly getting me to practice mindfulness. And along the way, my cousin, who was 3 years older than me, was so good at mindfulness that when we walked in the same field, he saw bugs, plants, birds, animals that I didn't know existed in that same field. It was remarkable. I remember my mother saying to him one day, to my cousin Jim, I haven't seen a praying mantis since I moved to this town. We've been here 5 years now. So I was 5.5. Oh, okay, Auntie, do you have a jar and a lid? So she sent him out with a used jar, jam jar. I didn't go with him that time. I wanted to eat. He came back in the jar. There's a praying mantis. And my mom's like, wow, where'd you find it? Oh, he says, I see a couple every time we go for a walk. I had never seen one going for a walk. Yes, he was 2 years older than me, but he was so in tune. My mom said a few trips later, I've never seen a turtle here. Boom, within 2 hours, he has a turtle. Then he would release it. So being mindful through my dad's teachings were good. Being mindful with my cousin was good. And then I started to learn it and meditation in another way. And that in our worship, when we went to our house of worship and be taught to pray, that you had to focus on just the words. And did the words make pictures? Did the words help create feelings? And so I don't remember who taught me that. But somebody teaching me about prayer said these words should help you see pictures, have feelings, make you think of other words, but you have to focus on the words and the sentences, because now I'm 5, 6, 7, and I'm learning to read at school, and these prayers are basic. And so that was a blessing, because when you can be calm and read and see images, feel what you're reading, think it, or if you read it and you can hear it, these are all different ways to absorb to help enhance our learning as well, because you're being mindful of what you're doing, and it helps with the absorption, comprehension, retention. And then I was given the gift in grade 8. My school principal came to me and said, Michael, you're one of 30 children. We want to take a speed reading comprehension retention course. Wow, that was a gift for a lifetime. I already could read fiction real fast, because when I read a book of fiction, I'm not reading it to remember all the details. I'm reading it as fast as I can. A for alibi, B for burglar, C for crime scene, D for deadbeat, etc. I'm reading it because I'm creating a little movie. I can hear the characters. I don't care what the bad guy's name was. We'll say Bert with the scar above one eye. I just remember the guy with a scar above one eye. I don't need to know his name. He's bad. He's evil. So that speed reading, retention, and comprehension course really made me understand that this brain of mine, when I read, I had to pay attention to my speed, but comprehension. If I didn't understand a word, don't keep going. Stop. Look it up in the dictionary. Figure it out in context of the paragraph. What does that word mean? So speed, comprehension, and retention. Somebody said years later, I was lucky I could learn things quickly. I said, lucky? I took a speed reading comprehension retention course. I took notes. I read the book 4 times. I recorded the book and played the tape back to myself twice. So I've got it visually. I've heard it auditorily. And when I recorded it, I was speaking it. I've done all I can to get all my senses to use and listen to the material. So, and then I took a Shaolin course, a Kung Fu course, and to be clear, I was a lousy Kung Fu-er physically. But that was all about, again, being mindful and in the moment. And when you're 13 to 18 and you're 129 pounds master in the dojo has first responders, police, firefighters coming to learn because it's good for their mind and calmness is important. And when you have a boxing champion at the state province level at 2 ages, once as an 18-year-old and once at 29, and he's in the group and he's 6 foot tall plus, and he is 200 some odd pounds. And he said, Michael, if criminals were like him, I wouldn't want to be a policeman. He's fast. He's effective. He's efficient. He scares me. He said, he only comes up to here on me. And yet with his feet, he can touch my nose and touch my ears. And he's only demonstrating because he didn't hurt me. So practicing mindfulness in Shaolin Kung Fu really taught me about being in the moment with my feelings, my body, and my intellect, and my senses. And so I was raised in a family, you never hit a girl or a woman because it's about respect. And so when my master would say, Michael, I want you today to spar, play fight with this student. In my head, I could hear my dad, she's a girl. In front of me is my 129-pound, well-accomplished sensei master with black belts in 2 different martial arts going, come on, go in there. Remember, no real kicking. Just touch their nose with a kick or their ear. Just touch. It took me 5 or 6 sessions, and only when one of the 30-year-old ladies didn't hurt me, but she let it be known with her behavior that she could flatten me because I wasn't fighting back. I was just blocking. Because you don't fight with a lady or a girl. And it was like, no, you're sparring and practicing with another being who is a lady or a girl. And you're sparring and practicing because you need to practice. And through practice, you gain mastery and excellence. So that learning to be in the moment and not discount gender, respect the gender, but step back from it and see them as the person, it was quite interesting. And so to have a 13-year-old young lady when I was 15, 16 be far better than me, one part humbling and one part awesome. But what I learned, I might not have physically been very good at, but at one point I was at a crime being committed and I was supposed to be in charge of the store, and I was. And so when we have 14 people came, a gang, to rob the store, I helped them steal more to keep them busy. So if you were the owner of the store, you might not have been happy about that, but all the staff I had, 7 other people, were safe. Nobody got touched. The 6'6" giant with the great big meaty fingers poked me under the ribs and tore the lining of my peritoneal sac. That's the thing that surrounds all your organs, so things move around and glide. It's supposed to stick to one another. So that caused me grief for 6 months, but that was the only nastiness that happened physically. And I just was able to remember my sensei master saying, be in the moment. If there's many of them and you're the parent or you're in charge and you need to be safe, just be safe. Don't try to run away. There's 14 of them. They'll clobber you. And don't try to attack them. There's 14 of them. They'll clobber you. So the only thing I could think of was, do you guys need headlights and tail bulbs for your motorcycles? You can't hit me when your arms are full of stolen goods. So being in the moment, for me, meditation, mindfulness is really powerful. So for physical, mental health during COVID, I like to exercise alone, outside, calmness, go for a walk, sometimes slowly, deliberately, sense the breathing, slow it way down. So that when you're resting, can you get your heart rate, because you've been working at cardiovascular and muscle tone, can you get your heart rate down to less than 60 beats a minute? It's not a rigid goal I pursue, but with just 4 days a week of vigorous power walking, my resting heart rate is 62 beats a minute. That's pretty good. I'd like 58 to 56. That's my ultimate goal. And sometimes at the end of a summer of swimming and exercise, I'm there. But it's a target. That's my real big goal, 56. But 62, I'm very happy with. So mindfulness, meditation through walking, reflection, taking pictures, doesn't matter the quality of the picture. It's taking a picture means being in the moment, framing the flower, the tree. I had a friend say, let's go for a walk. So we went to her favorite part of a forest where she lives. And halfway through the walk, I said, give me 5 minutes. It was a nice dry day. It had been a dry week. And I lied on the floor of the forest and took pictures of the canopy looking up. And so then when I published the pictures a few weeks later on, I think it was on Flickr, she's like, Michael, I've never looked up and taken pictures before. How did you know to do that? I said, I just think that when we're being mindful, we look down, we look ahead, we look behind, we look across, and we always look up. And so it's just how I was raised, is to be mindful, to look all around, look down, look up when you're in nature, because you get to appreciate it more. So that's a long, long answer about mindfulness and productivity. But between what I read and states of mind, one last thing is, in Italy, the mindful food movement started. So I can't speak for other cultures, but in North America, fast food, go, 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 shovel in the fuel. Don't chew too well, because it'll make up, cost time. No, if you want to fuel your body, take your time. To quote a very wise man I know, you have to savor the flavors and the textures, the tastes. So that's the other thing. Sometimes pan-fried potatoes and a scrambled egg with a little bit of cheese and pepper and a dash of olive oil. Oh, gourmet. Other times, lots of effort. 3 different types of pasta, fancy sauces. My waistline doesn't need fancy sauces, but every few months, it's so delicious. It's a party on your tongue. So I try to appreciate, manage the budget, but enjoy.
That's great. That's great. It's a treat to because what I have learned and what I have observed, that you, throughout your life, you have learned so many things, and you have unlearned so many things, and you have relearned so many things. So how do you develop these things? How did you come up with these things, these qualities that one can have, but one should learn? Yes.
What I read. So one of the gifts of life I have gratitude for was, at one point for 7 years, I had customers that sold books as part of what they did. So I was a retail consultant for 9 years, but for 7 of my years, I had people who had books. Part of their business had a bookstore in it. And so I would say to the owner, if you were one of the bookstore owners, what's the most popular best-selling book that people have come back and talked to you about in business or personal development or in fiction or biographies and autobiographies? And so at least 12 times a year, I'd come home with 3 or 4 books. So one of my favorite books that I can't speak highly enough about is by Dr. Helmstetter, written in the 80s, but it's as relevant today as ever will be. And if you're a parent, highly recommend it. If you're a student, highly recommend it. If you're struggling to get something accomplished, highly recommend it. And the book was What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And that's based on some pretty big research. And so How did I learn to be more resilient? For example, to use that book as the example, he talked about the phrases we use that lift us up and point us in the right direction towards accomplishment. And the phrases we use that point us towards despair, anxiety, depression, and if we're not careful, we don't get things done. We get stuck in an endless circling the drain pattern. So some would call it the Eeyore symptom from Winnie the Pooh. You know, I'll try. But then, to quote Yoda, there is no try, there is do. So with one of my small businesses as a kid, I didn't make much money the first summer. So my dad said, well, what are you going to do about that? Oh, get out there in March and ask for the business come May. So start earlier. So later in life, when it was time to get a summer job that paid money to pay for college and get on with life, I started applying for jobs in November for the next summer. And my friends are like, you're crazy. They're not even going to listen to you. And they're right. Some companies wouldn't take my resume. I said, when's the starting date? January the 1st. So a couple of them, I went the last week of December. I'm a week early, but would you take my resume now? And because I'd like to work here in May or June, whenever you start to hire summer students. And I got 5 summers of really great work, Monday to Friday. And because I had that I can attitude, I went out. This is the 1970s. Things have changed since. But back then, you could get, in Ontario, Canada, a chauffeur's license. So you had to spend money, study for the test, spend money to book the test, and it was a written exam. And so I was allowed to drive small commercial vehicles. So because of that, I got a job for 3 winters plowing snow as a part-time job. Paid $1 an hour more than my friends. Some of them said, oh, you're lucky. And luck had nothing to do with it. I had to work 15 hours to pay to take the test. I had to study for the test. I had to go get a ride to get the test because I didn't own a car. But then, boom, got the test, passed, got a job driving a snowplow, evenings and weekends. And that led to one summer driving a tow truck, evenings and weekends. I had the job Monday to Friday with the corporation to pay for college. Then I suddenly had an extra job. And then I told people, I think I should try my hand at teaching piano, little kids, because I used to play reasonably well. Professionally, no. Better than average, no. But I was good at teaching people how to start. I was good with beginners. So for about a year, I taught piano Tuesday nights. That paid me more than a full weekend of driving snowplow. So part of what I'd say to your listeners about being resilient is, where are your skills that pay you the most that you love? Because it was exhausting to teach 4 to 7-year-olds piano, but the money was 5 times an hour more than what I made selling retail, than driving a tow truck. And the tow truck, it was a $100,000 truck, a lot of responsibility. Be careful you don't get attached to the images around you. Because my friends are like, you drive a tow truck. Oh, yeah, it's a double boom. It's heavy duty. It's got 3 axles. Oh, yeah. Well, that was fun. Didn't pay me much more than being a gas attendant or a supervisor at the gas station or being a sales guy at the retail. It had prestige, but prestige doesn't pay bills. So being resilient for yourself is look at what you get attached to and be cautious that what you get attached to doesn't get in the way of being happy and successful. So to wrap this up, because I know I promised only an hour and I don't want to go over, clothes. I live near a mall that's a fashion mall. Yeah, 3 great coffee shops, some amazing places for the ladies to buy clothing, fashion clothing and practical things, and a couple of menswear shops that are very nice. Not cheap, though, because it's a fashion mall with reputation. Other way down the street is a store that sells workwear for men and women, nurses, doctors, tradespeople. High function, not high fashion. No real brand names except for footwear for foot safety. Well, I can go to the fashion mall, this is without COVID, and buy $190 shirts for men, or to the other fashion mall down the road by 40 minutes and buy $300 fashion shirts. Or I can go to the work store for men, and most people have to get real close and look for a logo to not know that this was a shirt that's 1/3 of the price of the fashion mall, and it's 20% of the price of the high fashion mall. It's still got some nice detailing. Whoops, let's see. Yeah, it's just not got a label of high fashion. So nothing wrong with buying the high end. More power to them. But 10 of these will last longer than 20 of those because there's our finer cotton. It breathes even nicer and it feels good. Well, this feels good too. It just doesn't feel amazing. So being resilient is being aware. Asking yourself, what are my options? What will serve me short-term and long-term? What will keep me safer and happier and more productive? Because I have some high school friends that made short-term decisions for happiness that cost them quite a bit long-term. One of them died in an automobile accident because he liked to drive fast. I like to drive fast too. There's a lot of adrenaline going fast. And lately in the news, we saw a famous athlete that's had a major car crash. And speed, no alcohol or drugs in his system, seemed to be the incident. And he was driving a world-class car. We had a famous actor a few years ago died in a car from being in a vehicle where somebody drove too fast on tires that were too old for that quality of car. You got to make choices, and you got to do them on purpose, not by default. And you can't let others lead you by the nose. There, I'll stop. We're 6 minutes over.
Yeah, no, it's a treat to watch you. It's a treat to listen to you because you're a great storyteller, I must say, and you have so much to give us and for my audience. And this is an asset for me because it will remain on my profile on my YouTube channel after that. For my whole life, and after that, and people will get benefit from that. So at the end, very quick on a quick note, can you give suggestion or something, or a lesson or a last word for the audience?
A couple of things. This and this should be on your own personal diet. Put up a filter and only allow the things in there that will help you be better, safer, happier in. We see politics that are not based on truth, but based on misinformation in this whole world. Not by all. Not all politicians are like that. So we have businesses that do that. So we have to be careful. We have to be cautious. And so also, what do you do to nurture yourself? For your viewers that have a Facebook account, we have the Resiliency for Life group. So we have 55 resiliency factors to get people to reflect on, do I do this daily, yearly, at all ever? Have I ever thought of it? So to look at the 55 resiliency factors, not all at once, that's overwhelming. Just one a week. There's 55 of them so that if you looked at one a week and you don't like one, there's 3 or 4 extras. So look at it. So there's 100+ quotes, and we should look at quotes not because they're the truth, but to get you to think and reflect. Does that quote speak to me? Does that quote tell me I should be doing something, not doing something, asking for help? Because I put a quote up a few weeks ago when somebody said, that quote's a lie. And the quote was something like, no pain, no gain. And I said, thank you for the conversation. I said, I had chronic illness for 7 years that was devastatingly painful. I had to learn to make friends with the pain because when I fought it, there was no cure. It's a chronic illness. So instead, when I got the pain, it's like, so what do I need to learn? Am I having this pain because I'm not managing my stress? What's unacknowledged in my life? And often, not always, but often, it's like, Yeah, I have an exam coming up and I haven't taken the time to study for it. And now I'm stressed because I should pass the exam, but it's hard to pass when you don't prepare. So quotes to make you think and reflect and take action as required. Studying. What skills can you learn? Can you learn one skill a week, one skill a month? Framing and reframing. Reframing my broken toe joint, that took me a month. I came home after the foot doctor said there's nothing you can do, you're just old, and was grumpy. And then one day I sat down and said, Michael, you've been stuck for a month. What are you stuck for? You know better than this. He's just one person with one opinion. Get on the phone, tell your family doctor that that's not the guy for you, and get on the phone and find a foot doctor, get a referral. I ended up going to a pain clinic where the doctor had two doctorates and a kinesiologist and got a resolution. And less than 90 days later, I was bopping and hopping all over again. And so take a look at what do you need to frame and reframe in your life? A relationship, a money issue, just what is it? And so if you reflect on that, what's your mental diet? What's your emotional diet? What's your physical diet? Mindfulness, meditation, framing, reframing, and the language you use on your belief systems can really help with a higher quality experience and often a higher quality outcome. And somebody said, well, that wouldn't cure cancer. And I said, you're right. If I'd have died of cancer, I could still say I won, because rationally, emotionally, and socially, I had a high quality experience with nursing staff and doctors and surgeons saying, Michael, it's really nice to treat someone that's still genuinely happy. I said, you know that I'm scared out of my mind. I could be dead in 6 weeks. On the other hand, though, I have the issue. The issue does not own me. I will not walk, talk, or sleep with the sheep. I am a lion. So not good or bad to judge others, but that's what worked for me. And so people should constantly say to themselves, what's moving me forward? And be careful you don't get stuck with something that makes you feel good, but is getting in the way of moving forward, like driving the tow truck. I got to drive this great big beast, and it felt good. And in 1970 dollars, it was $100,000 because it was a beast. But I quickly realized I only make $0.25 an hour more. So I went and got a job in retail and made $1 an hour more because I had sales skills and social skills. And then I taught piano, and it was like, I have even more advanced skills. I can talk to little people. So pay attention to where your skills are that bring you happiness and can move you forward, as opposed to what brings you prestige but doesn't move you forward, just feels good. I admit I wouldn't mind some $350 shirts. I don't need $350 shirts. The ones from the work store down the road, they look just as nice, and people even comment, wow, like that design. I've never seen it before. Well, no, most people don't go there unless they're a plumber, an electrician, a supervisor, or a medical staff, because that's their target. But I'm more than happy to buy their shirts from them because they work. Anyways, thank you for this gift of time.
Thank you so much. And have note that not all some are just. So with that note, I say goodbye to you and to my viewers as well. And I must say that do join the group that is Resilience for Life. It's a very good group, and I have been there, and I'm learning so much from that group. So you can learn also from that group. So until the next video, until the next great, amazing person, I say goodbye. Allah Hafiz, everyone.